Hey everyone, it's Kayvon with Ascari Art. This is the last part of the 6-part series. I hope you enjoy it. So what I'm going to do in this one is I'm actually going to correct some of the areas that I missed in part 5. I'm also going to work on the bottom side of the painting to extend it and make it very similar to the top. So just continue moving on with that. And I'm also going to change this video up a little bit. So I'm going to speed it up for you. And I'm going to do a monologue on top so that you don't have to watch a 2-hour video. You still see my brush strokes, you see how I'm doing it, but I'm explaining through it with a monologue. Hope you enjoy it. Take care. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and join me on Patreon if you can to support the channel so I can continue doing more and more of these videos of painting demos for you. All right. Thanks again. Let's do it. I like a lot of the things that are happening here. It's pulling and using the rest of the canvas like I had hoped. I had a lot of concentration in the center, and now I'm working on pulling that out and bringing some of that ink out and softening it up on the edges. And you can see based on some of the direction here, like you see that the lines are going in and they're part of this flow and direction. And I see this one line that cuts, like the direction of this is this way. And I see this one line doing this like weird L-shaped thing coming in. I don't like it. I don't feel like it's natural for it to do that. I don't know. I feel like it's breaking up the flow that I've got. So I'm going to try to connect this line here to here, right? These two here, this to this. And then here I'm going to try to extend this out so that it feels like it's kind of coming in the right direction. This feels like it's just cutting off this path. And I just don't like that. So compositionally, I want to try to connect this and bring this out. Other than that, I think this side would be done. I think I'm going to pull just slightly, just a little bit more. I did notice there's a slight area here that I may have to correct, like with the spots. So I'm going to probably run just a couple of brush marks to get rid of the circles. I don't want circles really. This is a focus of movement and movement of linear movement, as you can see here. So I'm almost done with this side. I'm going to go to the other side and do the same effect that I've got here, so that it brings in this outside concentration feeding in, like you're feeding this painting. And I've had this conversation before. I've thought about it, and to be honest, this painting has had its turbulence, right? So from the beginning, I had a turbulent start, and as I went through this, I mean, it's a 5-part series. My paintings usually typically take 1 or 2 videos. This has been a 5-part series, and it's been crazy, just the ups and downs and the turbulent ride with this painting. So I'm actually going to call this turbulence because of just the emotional roller coaster I had to go through to finish this. And it also is very similar in style and look to my series of other paintings. The first one was the Glacial Pressures. You could probably check that out on my YouTube. Glacial Pressures is the emotional fractures that I have in our lives every day, and that pressure that causes those fractures. And with COVID and everything that we've been dealing with, and just family, those pressures are compacted. And that was that painting. And this has the same kind of there's relief areas on the outside with a lot of concentration of cracks and turbulence and movement that are just, it's still moving. Life still moves on. Those cracks are what make us. In this painting, I feel like, has developed me as an artist, just doing this painting and learning through it with you on this journey. So, all right, enough talk. I'm going to put my mask on, so my voice will probably change, but I'm going to continue. I'm going to finish this today, and I've actually decided not to add brass or chrome to this. I feel like it's got enough movement. It's got enough electricity to where I don't think I need to add gold or brass or or silver, chrome to embellish this. So, all right, let's get started. Let's do it.
So I wanted to try this. So as I mentioned earlier, this line is kind of not going in the right direction. So how I move that line, I'm basically going to load the brush with alcohol and try to basically use that brush to erase the line. And see, I keep loading my brush with alcohol, putting the alcohol down and trying to erase that line and redirect it the way I want. The blow dryer helps move the ink, the wet alcohol, to the edges and in the direction, and I'm using it to kind of guide it as I'm painting. So right now I'm just trying to erase the perpendicular lines from the actual direction, make them more parallel. And so I poured some alcohol at the top and I'm pushing it down to blend it down better, and it also helps alleviate some of those perpendicular lines that are crossing in, that are going in the wrong direction. So as you can see here, I'm just loading my brush and redrawing and placing the lines where I want. And I'm not drawing the line, I'm just placing alcohol in between where two lines would go and push all the alcohol to one or the other side. Now I've sped up this video to about 300% because it's a 2-hour long video and I want to keep your interest and you can kind of see how I'm working through this and without boring you to death. So here I've got that middle piece right there at the bottom, at the top, that I need to extend out to the negative space, and it doesn't have as many cracks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour alcohol from the top and push it down, as you can see, and I move my hand down as if I'm moving the alcohol in a direction as I'm pouring it, so that it helps move the ink down towards the bottom of your screen. So I'm trying to get some of that pigment, and I'm not worried about the lines that I had already made there or what it looked like, because the object is for me to move the ink out into the negative space and soften it up. So I'm using my brush, my larger brush, to go in and create some of the preliminary lines there, and then I'll come in with the middle brush. This is a middle-sized brush, to go in and define those lines even better. Now for the outside edges, I poured alcohol on the outside as well, and I'm pushing in. So there's alcohol that came from the top and there's alcohol that's coming from the bottom, and I'm moving them back and forth. And I'm redrawing those lines by loading my brush with more alcohol in a cup, and I'm using it to guide the lines where I like. You see, I'm making those cracks with the brush. So as I'm doing this, I'm thinking through it, looking back, coming back down, going up, looking at it as a whole. Right now I'm zoomed in for you so you can see the section that I'm working on, but I keep adding alcohol, looking at it, stepping back, looking at it, coming back and redrawing, because sometimes when you're too close to the object, you can't really see what you're working on and how it looks as a whole, versus you may like a small little area, but it may not work with the rest of the painting as a whole. So you always want to step back. So here you can see I'm using a very thin brush to create those fine lines on the outside, soft. You have to make sure that your brush is clean though when you're doing those soft lines on the outside edges, because you don't want additional pigment. You'll have to erase it and start over. So I just poured a whole bunch more alcohol on the outside, leading it into the center from the brush, because I do like some of those cracks there. So that's why I didn't start pouring alcohol from the top down. I'm leading it up, and I'm going to redirect some of those lines to connect to existing lines in the center of the painting, but I'm helping the alcohol guide in and out, in and out. So here's another section of the painting. This is the far right bottom corner. Again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to use the alcohol. See, like that area was really soft, so I didn't really care about changing it. So I poured the alcohol from where the ink was saturated most, and I'm using the brush, which is a loaded brush. So I load the brush with alcohol to add to the existing alcohol that's on the canvas. And as I pour the alcohol, I'm pouring it down and out, away from the ink. I'm not doing drops. I'm not doing with a dropper. I'm actually using the full container because it gives me more. And since this is a larger piece, it's just, you need a lot more alcohol to be able to move this stuff. So I'm basically painting it out. I'm shaping it with a blow dryer, and then I go in with the brush and just kind of start guiding it a little more in the direction that I want. You see how I'm connecting some of those lines to the existing lines in the center. You can paint with the blow dryer, at least by putting in your foundation for what you want. So I noticed that line was kind of perpendicular to the direction that I wanted to go. So now I'm going back, I poured more alcohol, I'm redirecting those lines. You see how I'm trying to erase those lines and redirect them to the direction that I want the painting to go, in the direction that I want the viewer to view. I'm basically, these lines are guiding the viewer's eye towards a certain focal point or a certain area. And it helps to have a vision like that, so that you know what you're trying to achieve as you're painting, and not letting it just happen. Right? There are great things that you can do to make it just happen, but you sometimes make it happen with the vision as the foundation as you paint. So you always have that vision of what you want, or the vision develops as you go, based on when you're painting, so that you have this, the vision develops and becomes a whole picture, and you're solving it as you're going. So it's a lot of things happening at the same time, and it's really hard to explain, but I think you can have a vision and build a vision as you're letting things happen, and let the things that happen change the vision, and then make other things, make the vision that you have for the painting change some of the things that happen. So it's a relationship that goes back and forth. So I'm explaining here that I cap the back of the blow dryer off with my hand. Since it's got a glove on it, I can cap it to slow down the air so that I can control the back and forth of the ink without it splattering all over the rest. So my lowest setting is unfortunately still too high, so I basically cap the back. Now there are diffusers that you can buy for the back. I have a little bit more control with my hand because I can lift my hand off of it, slow it down, speed it up. So it's just something that I've developed as I learn how to paint, with the blow dryer, moving the ink. So I'm just letting the ink, the alcohol move, but I'm also kind of letting things happen, but I'm also letting the vision control where I want those lines and things to happen. Hopefully that makes sense. So now I'm spreading, this is the right side of the painting, bottom right corner against the edge. I'm trying to literally extend the ink back out, but right now I'm pushing it in so that the alcohol lifts some of that pigment, and I get to redraw the lines, and then I push it back out while it's still wet. And you notice the blue looks purple when it's wet, and you shouldn't be alarmed because it's just the nature of the alcohol ink. When it's wet, some inks turn purple, but when they dry, they become a gray-blue. Kind of can be misleading though. So I like a lot of the things that are happening in the center of the painting. This is just me moving it around from the outside in. See, I'm changing the direction of where I want the lines to go. You load your brush, you come back in, you lift. That's why coating the canvas with proper amount of kills really helps you to be able to do that. So as I move through this, I'm just reconnecting lines, trying to spread it out, but I'm not losing sight of the direction of where I want those lines to go. The other thing, if you want to challenge yourself early on, I think this could help, is to not have any vision or any idea when you go into it, and have yourself, the only vision you do have is where you want to start with the ink, and then have yourself challenge yourself by building that vision as you start moving the ink around. Now that'll help with a lot of creative problem skills solving when you're painting. However, it could be also very challenging and frustrating if you're not really familiar with either the golden ratio or composition, or not having any idea of just those basic fundamentals to help you as you start painting. So that is a way to challenge yourself, but I recommend looking up, the golden ratio, and or it's used for photography but also painting, and then you can look up just composition, study some of the old masters and how they broke the rules, but they knew the rules before they broke them, and that's the idea. So back to this again, you see how the alcohol is trying to make its own lines. It's trying to lift the ink perpendicular to where I want the lines to be. So I'm just redirecting it and guiding it with the brush. Very repetitive, very tedious, but that's what I love. So I'm liking where the lines are going, and as I'm looking through it, I'm continuously moving them and drawing more lines. So you notice down below there on the right, I need to extend some more of the ink down. You could always use a paper towel. You can, if you don't like some of the lines, you can always use a paper towel and redirect it and basically eliminate it. So this is where I'm showing that here. You load your paper towel with alcohol, and then you can go in and just literally erase off the canvas what you want. And there you can see kind of how I'm creating even more lines. How fun. So with that paper towel, I douse it with alcohol. I'm going in and just softening some of those edges up, pouring some alcohol down to see if I can lift. I didn't like that area, so that's why I used the paper towel to just get it. But I could have just poured the alcohol down and just redid it that way. I'm doing the very fine lines with the little paintbrush, skinny tip paintbrush. Just dabbing my paper towel that's doused with alcohol, just dabbing it on the canvas to kind of build some texture there. Or use the texture of the canvas to build some depth. Just kind of softening it up. See how that area I left on purpose, but see how you can soften it up with paper towel doused in alcohol. Just showing you. I use a flat brush to kind of push and create even more lines. The flat brush helps guide it, push the ink to the edge better. So I do use the flat brush as well. Gives me the very, very thin lines that I like. Very little details, small details. So here I'm just showing that it stops abruptly and I need to use some of that ink out from the middle, and I need to bring it, the middle ink I need to push back out. And I indicated that with my hand, so we're gonna see, I'm gonna start pulling some of that ink back and out, you see? Creating more of a connection and distinct connections from the outside to the inside so that it feels more of a completed piece versus where it looks like I just did it bits and pieces. Where I actually did, but you don't want it to seem that way. See, I'm just reconnecting the line, drawing new lines with a loaded brush. So I'm not afraid of changing it because I'm evolving it as I go, and my vision for it is changing and shifting as I go through this, work this out. See, I ran some alcohol. This is what I mentioned earlier. I need to pull some of that ink out and bring it, make more lines connecting that area right there and over here. Yeah. So just reconnect the lines, keep connecting lines. I didn't like that straight line, so just kind of changing it as I go. So I'm just going to redirect these final few lines through, make sure that it's constant. You know, I noticed that there's a line that's shooting through right there that's perpendicular to the rest. So poured some alcohol there to fade it down and blend it. And then I'm going to bring a brush and just kind of redirect some of that. Get that and quickly, basically. Well, it feels quick because it's sped up to 300%. But just, you know, again, extending some of that color out to the edges and bringing in some of the direction coming out from the sides into the center. so that there's a source. And so here we go. This is about wrapping it up. I truly hope you enjoyed this series of videos for this painting. I hope you enjoy the painting. It's called Turbulence, and I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for actually watching it up to this point.